Boy, gay boy, I'm fed up of see your ugly face on my TV, you biscuit. Oh, you're not the center of the universe, stain.
I swear on Crip, if I see Michael B. Jordan, I'ma slap that mini feather duster he calls a mustache off his lip, bruh.
Dear God, give us back Tupac and we'll give you Justin Bieber.
Dr. Phil, why don't you shut the up, you bald-headed, big-mouth hillbilly?
Ashton Kutcher needs to get hit by a bus ASAP.
Jake Gyllenhaal has the most punchable face of all time. I'd like nothing more than to sock him in his ugly, soft, starry-eyed pug face.
I say kill the Mayor of London and you will be rid of one Muslim terrorist.
Oh, what? We're not laughing at that one. Oh, okay. That's fine. Sadiq is sad, everyone. Aww. And I understand why. People are saying some pretty bad things to the Mayor of Londonistan, you know? I suppose in the grand scheme of things, they pale in comparison to the bad things he's said and done. I mean, it's not like he's presiding over an administration that's seen crime rates soar to record levels. It's not like he's a close friend and defender of people convicted of spreading jihad. And it's not like he's ever said that terrorist attacks are just part and parcel of living in a big city. You know, like congestion or multiple coffee outlets. And can I just say, on a side note, whoever chose that photo is a fucking genius. But seriously, kind of puts Jake Gyllenhaal's abuse in perspective, really, doesn't it? I mean, what's the worst thing he's ever done? The Prince of Persia? I'll never know, and the best thing is, he can't make me watch it. What Sadiq Khan says and does, on the other hand, the only way to escape that is emigration. It actually matters, and his latest proposal is that Silicon Valley censor social media even more than they currently do, because, well, we'll get to that. Let's listen to him wallow for a bit first, shall we? I love the smell of self-pity in the morning.
Got the others? Muslims need to be shot or hanged. The mayor is doing nothing about attacks.
I endorse half of that. It's a shame, really, that the person who wrote it ruined what could have been a perfectly good statement. What are you doing toward terror attacks, Sadiq? Apart from watching them happen, refer to Muslims who work to prevent them as Uncle Toms?
The point is that you can't just pick and choose who you speak to. You can't just speak to Uncle Toms. You can't just speak to people who will say what you want them to hear.
Allow ISIS fighters to waltz back in and plan more?
If you're a jihadi who wants to go to Syria and fight against British troops on some occasions, we just let you calmly come back in. Only one of them is currently under one of these control
and yet
orders.
400 have come back out of the 850 who've gone to Iraq or Syria to fight. How do we know how many? I mean, obviously this is a UK problem. You are mayor of the capital city where the most recent terrorist attack has taken place. How many of those 400 have come back to London?
The estimate is just over half. So when you
where are they?
When you look at the
no, but seriously, where are they?
How are we letting people back in to the UK who haven't just been trained? They've actually fought potentially against our troops. How are we letting them back in without knowing exactly where they are and what they're up to? Because out of all the thousands of people that we're concerned about, surely those who've actually gone to fight are the biggest risk.
Well, that's one of the reasons why it doesn't make sense for the government to be cutting resources from those.
Where are they? You're the mayor of this capital city. Where are they?
I can't follow 400 people. Muslims have no dignity. I wish Sadiq Khan would just blow himself up like they all do. He might get his 12 virgins.
Now, come on, they don't all blow themselves up, do they? Some of them fail.
As Mayor of London, I wish someone would build a fire and throw you on it. You useless sack of shit.
That's just run-of-the-mill internet shitposting. Can't somebody in his position shrug this off? It's not like he's one of the most powerful men in the country or anything. Literally guarded by the Secret Service. James Bond has got this guy's back, and he's whining about Twitter eggs, spouting crap. You're a politician, mate. Newsflash. You're there to be insulted.
Let's get this clear. My family is off limits, all right? This job is not going to get anywhere near my husband and my kids. It just doesn't.
Of course it fucking does. As per the wee barcode and the serial number under your right armpit, you are now built and owned by the state, and you are under the spotlight 24 hours a day, darling. You know what you are? You're a fucking human dartboard. And Eric fucking Bristow's on the hockey, flinging a million darts made of human shit right at you. Can you take that? Can you?
If you use a knife to mutilate your daughter's vagina, will the full force of the law be brought down on you?
No, is the answer to that. And you see, this is where any sympathy for the guy is just sucked from the universe. The reluctance of authorities to prosecute FGM cases is not controversial, Sadiq. The Telegraph asserts it. The BBC asserts it. The fucking Guardian asserts it. You think you don't have to answer for that? Not just you, everybody in public office, everybody in the criminal justice system. But all you want to do is, what, present a legitimate question as an example of hate speech?
Sort your fucking life out, mate!
There's an easy solution for terrorism. Deport the Muslims, starting with your pathetic self.
Yeah. And? What? Are you implying that wouldn't work? It's not a policy I'm going to advocate, as the Muslims of Britain are citizens and have their rights, plus there are obvious logistical challenges. But don't pretend like if we could do that, we'd still have the problem with terrorism that we do. Ask the people of Japan about that. They've solved it by solving Muslim immigration, i.e. they have none. They've worked it out by some stroke of genius that Islam brings Islamic terror. You can't have one without the other. It's like bloody Ant and Dec.
I don't read this out to be portrayed as a victim, but I worry about what happens when young boys and girls from minority backgrounds see this kind of thing on their social media timelines.
Think of the children. Won't somebody please think of the children?
Or experience it themselves.
Yeah, sure you are. That's why you just read them out in front of millions of people. It's like, I'm really worried statements like this will hurt young people. Let's look at another one. Yeah. You're such a... I'm worried about what happens when minorities see this kind of thing. First of all, in the context of social media, who is a minority? Please? When the entire point of the internet is to transcend borders, who is outnumbered here? Muslims? With their religion of 1.6 billion and community leaders like Dr. Mohammed Al-Arefi, sporting over 20 million followers. Is this guy a minority? And yes, all jokes aside, of course I don't condone targeting individuals with threats or anything like that, but why are you so selective in your condemnation, Sadiq? That's what I want to know. What about minority hatred towards the so-called majority? Do you care about the hatred people like Paul Joseph Watson receive on a daily basis from members of your community simply for speaking out against your religion? You could at least mention it. Or what about minority hatred towards other minorities? The Quran and the Hadith are commandments to hate in that regard. They're packed to the brim with incitement. Incitement to kill Jews, incitement to kill homosexuals, incitement to kill Sikhs and Buddhists and atheists. What are you going to do about that? Boot imams from Twitter? Ban religious sermons from YouTube? I didn't think so. This kind of sinister encroachment on freedom of expression is never reciprocal. It's always one way. And don't you accept that much of the bile you see directed at Muslims online and everywhere else is, for the most part, a response to their own hateful and stupid preachments? But never mind, eh? It's the symptom we need to cure, guys. Let's keep hacking away at that Hydra, everybody. Clueless.
And what about young girls and women who have been driven from these platforms, reversing our long fight for gender equality?
No, Sadiq, you have it backwards there, pal. Gender equality means women get to be treated like adults and not patronised as quivering snowflakes primed for suicide. Forgetting that studies show men are just as likely to receive online abuse as women, the central point is if you can't handle the heat, get back in the kitchen.
Platforms such as Facebook, Twitter and YouTube have brought huge benefits to society, but also significant challenges. We've already seen evidence of elections and referendums being influenced.
No way. What? You mean that social media, which allows people to communicate, spread information and learn from each other, has influenced things?
You don't say. Goodness gracious, whatever shall we do?
But George...
Sound the alarm.
Really?
Call Scotland Yard.
That's the problem with social media, that the free exchange of ideas leads to political outcomes you don't like? Such as Brexit, presumably? That's why we need it, you fucking authoritarian loon. Take that function of social media away, and what's left? Instagrams of your breakfast and sodding animal videos? Look, I have no intention of becoming this guy.
My favourite thing on here is YouTube, and my favourite YouTube thing is animals, and my favouriteest animal thing is hamster on the piano. Listen.
Hamster on a piano, hamster on a piano, hamster on a piano, eating popcorn on a piano, hamster on a piano,
On a piano. Let it wriggling. Eating popcorn.
eating popcorn on a piano.
A rise in extreme propaganda and online abuse, misogyny and religious hatred, fake news spreading disinformation, algorithms blinkering us from different points of view and pushing people to extremes.
Oh, cry me a river. Listen, social media is pushing people to extremes? You don't think your crappy policies have anything to do with it? You don't think it's the failure of the mainstream media to do their jobs as well as they might? Give me a break. People's reactions might be extreme in some cases, but most of that's on you and the terrible world people like you are creating. The only thing most of us can do regularly is vent online, and you want to take that away now. 2 words, powder and keg. That's insane. And how do you not know that? Well, it's because you're fucking thick.
And terrorists and far-right groups using social media to not only inspire, but to radicalise and brainwash others.
Okay, remember now, you can learn most of what you need to know about someone's agenda by how they frame things and what they leave out or neglect to say. So, terrorists and far-right groups, they're in the same sentence, first of all, as if there's some kind of equivalence. And secondly, why no mention of far-left groups, Sadiq? What, do you think there's no hatred coming out of Antifa? They're beating people up on a fairly regular basis right now and use social media to plan that violence. Kind of in the remit of what you're talking about here. But he doesn't care about that. He doesn't care about Black Lives Matter, rioting in the streets and shooting police officers. He doesn't care about the racial hatred that's puked out by far left organisations like the Young Turks. Doesn't care. He won't even whisper it. But he wants to talk about censoring the far right. Oh yeah, he's aching to shut them up. And we know who he means. If you think he's only talking about neo-Nazis, and I mean actual neo-Nazis, you're a fool. Don't get me wrong, censoring them would be bad enough under my principle of free speech, but he means Tommy Robinson. He wants him kicked off Twitter. He means anybody who's not afraid to fiercely criticise or mock Islam, immigration, multiculturalism, which is everyone listening to this. Basically, if you've got this far, without hurling your laptop at the wall. He's talking about you, okay? Does anybody doubt that? I mean, just look at what's happened in the UK over the last week. 3 people banned from crossing the border because they were planning to say something that didn't comply with Sharia, by all accounts. I mean, this is just an extraordinary story and stain on the reputation of my country. Not least because... I'm sorry, but I'm going to go off on a bit of a tangent here because I was stunned reading this. This is the toilet paper of a letter that was handed to Brittany Pettibone rejecting her request to visit the UK last Friday. It's unbelievable. You have asked for leave to enter the United Kingdom as a visitor for 5 days. You know, my girlfriend has English as a 3rd language. When I showed her this letter, the first thing she said to me was, shouldn't there be an S there? Fucking tin pot. You have asked for leave to enter the United Kingdom as a visitor for 5 days, but as you stated in your interview, I have reasons to believe that you are seeking admission to the United Kingdom. Yeah, you already said that. You're just repeating what's on the top line. Seeking admission to the United Kingdom to interview Tommy Robinson, a far-right leader whose materials and speeches incite racial hatred. No, they fucking don't. And if that means he can't be interviewed, you need to tell the BBC, mate. They've interviewed him. He's spoken at Oxford University, for Pete's sake. You stated at the interview that you will be filming your boyfriend, Martin Sellner's speech. Who's that? Is he on YouTube? Martin Sellner's speech? Never heard of him. Your boyfriend admitted at the interview to being a co-founder of the Austrian branch of Generation Identity, which is viewed in the UK as a right-wing organisation. So, not even far-right anymore, just right-wing. What's that? Theresa May won't be allowed back in at this rate. Furthermore, your boyfriend have in his possession... Okay, I understand now. I get why they were deported. This is a recent immigrant with a grudge against them speaking right now, isn't it? Writing this. Hot off the plane from Pakistan. And he's translating word by word from a bloody dictionary. Furthermore, your boyfriend had in his possession the leaflets with scenarios regarding possible violence at his speech. Yeah, that's Antifa. Antifa, remember? The goons I mentioned earlier? They threatened to show up at Speaker's Corner and start shit. So, yeah, let's punish him. Let's not send a police escort with the guy to protect his right not to be assaulted. Let's do what they want. 'Cause it's easier, quite honestly. Well, what a fantastic message to send to people prepared to use violence and intimidation to get what they want. Anyway, you get the picture. I'm not reading any more of that, as it appears to have been written by a George Orwell villain with learning difficulties. And Lauren Southern was rejected because she called Allah gay. Read her letter if you don't believe me. That's why she's a racist and can't come in. Do you understand what's going on here? This is a blatant attempt to impose some version of multicultural blasphemy law in the United Kingdom. This is what Sadiq Khan ultimately wants implemented everywhere. Look at how bad things are already on social media and in Europe as far as free speech is concerned. We should be talking about pushing back, not caving in further like this bloody maniac would have it. I mean, who's safe under this precedent? Pat Condell? Gone. Stefan Molyneux? Gone. Black Pigeon? You're out of there. What about Sargon? He certainly said things that are construed by idiots like Khan as far right. AIU has already had multiple strikes against his channel for criticising far left bigotry. He must be an extremist. Why don't we just ban him for good? Wouldn't want people to be misled now, would we? My point is, do you think you can stay out of this? It's ironic, really, because the reason Martin Sellner was travelling to London was to deliver a eulogy on free speech, which at this stage feels more like an obituary. But interestingly, Tommy Robinson has committed to deliver the speech in his stead.
Speaker's Corner has a 300-year history from some of the most controversial figures, from Karl Marx to George Orwell.
Vladimir Lenin.
But yeah, everyone is allowed to speak there. It's part of our country's history. And the fact that they're trying to stop it, and the fact that we see Islamic preachers coming in, every week, then I'll deliver this speech on your behalf. I'll read this speech out. So the government haven't won, because I can't sit there and think that you're letting them win. If they stop you giving the speech, then they win. So at 3 o'clock on Sunday, I'll ask anyone who values freedom of speech, whether it be in Britain or in Europe, come along and support free speech. And Sunday, speech.
And I say, if you can make it, go along. And it goes without saying, showing up doesn't mean you necessarily endorse everything Selma represents or Robinson represents. I can't believe we have to keep asserting this. The real question is, are you big enough to listen to a speech by Martin Sellner and make up your own mind about it, or do you think people like Sadiq Khan should do that for you? And I think when phrased like that, most people understand that we're not actually in the minority here. We just need to stand up, be counted, and say enough is enough.
This is very urgent business, ladies and gentlemen, I beseech you. Resist it while you still can, and before the right to complain is taken away from you, which will be the next thing. You will be told you can't complain because you're Islamophobic. The term is already being introduced into the culture as if it was an accusation of race hatred, for example, or bigotry, whereas it's only the objection to the preachings of a very extreme and absolutist religion. Watch out for these symptoms. They are not just symptoms of surrender, very often ecumenically offered to you by men of God in other robes, Christian and Jewish and smarmy ecumenical. These are the ones who will hold open the gates for the barbarians. The barbarians never take a city till someone holds the gates open for them. And it's your own preachers who will do it for you, and your own multicultural authorities who will do it for you. Resist it while you can. And if you wonder what will happen if you don't, look and see how a cricket team in Middlesex in England had to change its name by force last week, because it was called, and had been for years, the Middlesex Crusaders. Look and see how stories about little pigs can't be taught to children in English schools anymore, lest offence be taken by the religion of peace. Resist it while you can.